Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Here are my thoughts.
Whatever happens, I'm here for you.
No! Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second part of the remake series. This is part number 2 of 3. The first part was obviously remake of the remake of the original storyline of Final Fantasy VII and the original game Final Fantasy VII that came out in the late 90s. This is obviously a big deal for a lot of people, including myself. I am a massive FF7 fan. I have been waiting what seems like forever, especially for remake, and now even more for Rebirth. And I have finished it about a week or so ago. I had to think about a couple of things. I had to collect my thoughts. That's why I'm doing these kind of videos, these style of videos now, where after I finish a game, I'm just going to give you some thoughts I had on the game. So, there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to try keep it as brief as I can, because I don't want to, A, I don't want to go on too long, and B, I don't want to spoil too much, but there is an awful lot in this game, especially when you compare, like, remake to Rebirth. There is a huge difference in the way this game plays and kind of what's laid out for you in terms of content and stuff like that. So in total, it took me around about 40 to 45 hours. I think it was nearer to 45 hours to finish the game. That was with a mixture of the main story and a couple of side stuff and some more specific side stuff that I'll get into than others. But it still included a lot of things that were in the world and other stuff you can do that wasn't tied into the main story. So if you were just going to do the main story, I would say you could probably do it under 40 hours. If you are going to do everything in this game, it'd take a while. This game is absolutely massive. There is a lot in this game. There's a lot to... They really kind of outdid themselves, and as I was playing it, I was kind of like trying to kind of come to terms or understand, like, how did they make this game in the time frame that they had? I know they had a couple of years to do it, but still, it staggers me just how different this is to remake in terms of scale. It is so massive. It is so huge and open, and there's so much to do in every section of this world as well. I'm going to start off with the side content, because I feel like for many people, especially coming from remake, that was kind of one of the downfalls of remake, was the side missions. Especially they weren't very good, let's be honest. They weren't great. There's only so much I can take with you need to save some cats and then bring them back here. While, okay, it's kind of goofy and fun sometimes in remake, a lot of times it was a bit just boring and there wasn't much to it. In Rebirth, they have mostly corrected this issue. They have actual storylines in the side missions. Some more than others. Some still have that very kind of like, go fetch this and come back. But what they kind of do with the story, or the side missions at least, is have steps in them or branch them out in different steps. So if you do one thing and you do that particular thing, it kind of opens up something more about the side mission and a little bit new things to kind of discover as you keep, playing it and completing it. Probably the biggest change, or the biggest side mission thing you can do, side content you can do, and trust me, there was a lot in here. There's a lot that I'm not going to talk about in this review because there's just no time for it. There is just so much. But probably the biggest thing I would say is Queen's Blood. And Queen's Blood is a card game that is built into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It is a fully fleshed out card game. You collect cards in the world, you can buy cards in the world, you can build your own decks, and you can play games with people in and around the world when you travel to various different places. Queen's Blood is amazing. I love Queen's Blood. It is my new favorite in-game card game. Open world in-game card game. I know they don't come around often, but when they do, they're usually quite good. I mean, obviously the one that everyone compares it to is probably Gwent in The Witcher 3 and stuff like that, and I love Gwent, and I played it a lot. But after a while with Gwent, you sort of have a kind of idea of how you want to play that game, or like trying to find the meta and the best way to kind of beat everyone in that game, is fairly easy, I would say.
Use the spy cards.
The thing is with Queen's Blood is it feels like it's not as straightforward. There probably is a couple of cards that are like, if you use these cards, you'll probably win every game. But it's not as simple trying to figure that out. Obviously, if you go on the internet and find that stuff out, you can. But just playing it, I feel like I'm constantly changing the deck and what I'm using to fight people all the time. When I get a new card, I'm genuinely interested in that new card because I'm like, how's this going to change like my overall way I play and all that kind of stuff? And it just makes it interesting. Like, it does make it interesting. There are times where I thought I had like a good deck and I could beat anyone with it, and then I was like, nope, I need to change this around and do stuff with it. So it keeps it fresh and interesting, and just the way the game plays it's fairly simple. It takes a couple of games to kind of get used to it and understand it a bit, but it's fairly simple to get into, and then once you get into it, you're probably going to be playing Queen's Blood quite a lot, especially if you're into card games and stuff like that. It's kind of fantastic. One of the other things that I wanted to mention that was something I had a problem with Remake is the word padding. Padding is something where you basically have like a long stretch or a level itself with not much going on except to travel from one place to the other, but it extends the kind of life of the game in terms of playtime and stuff, but it's not very interesting. You know, it's like having like a very long corridor or a dungeon or something you go through, but there's not much to really get excited about. It's just basically doing the same thing, going in, fighting things, and then fighting more things, and then fighting more things, and then coming out. And Remake had a lot of this, essentially because they were trying, with part 1, with Remake, it was essentially just Midgar was the main section. Now that section in the original is about 5-6 hours long until you actually leave Midgar. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's an entire game. It's a 30-hour game. So there was always a chance that they were going to pad it out with things that weren't very interesting. Don't get me wrong. They kind of still padded it out with a lot of interesting things, like added things that weren't in the original. But Hojo's Lab in Remake, my god, I hate that fucking place. I'm happy to say Rebirth does this less. It's not necessarily to say that it's not completely gone with padding and things like that, but I feel like when they do it in Rebirth, they now attempt to try put interesting things involved in those padding sections, you know, especially if you have to walk a long way away, there's usually a couple of cutscenes that are kind of interesting in between. Like, I feel like that's the difference between Rebirth and Remake. They still have the padding things happening, but when they do it right in Rebirth, there's sort of something interesting to go along. Don't get me wrong, there is a particular section, just like in Hojo's Lab in Remake, there's a particular section in Rebirth involving Cait Sith and some boxes, and I fucking hate that level. It's the one thing I absolutely despise from Rebirth, is that particular level. I'm not going to go into it much because it's spoilers, but oh my god, I never ever want to play it again. It was tied to the main story, and I don't know why, because it sucked. It was literally so bad. Top tier music. It is incredible remakes of the original songs, new versions of them, extended version, multiple versions of them. There is one song in particular that's actually my favorite song in the whole of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and there's like 15 fucking versions of it in Rebirth, and they play at different times depending on what's happening on screen, and it kind of tries to match what's happening on screen, and it blew my mind when I heard like the 10th version of it, and I was like, what is going on? The music is a phenomenal achievement. They've outdid themselves even more. Like, I had high expectations for the music, even going into Remake and all this kind of stuff, but the original score is too good. But what they've also done is just not done like a copy-paste job in a way. They kind of extended it or like done new interpretations of it, and they all sound just fucking amazing in this game. The music is incredible. Now, as I said, I'm not going to talk about the main story. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to keep this spoiler free as much as possible. What I can say, though, is for the most part of this game, and bearing in mind it took around about, what's that, 45 hours or so. I remember playing it, and I think I was at like the 25-30 hour mark. Like I was well into the game at this point. And I was playing alongside with my girlfriend, and I remember at one point, just like unconsciously, if that's the right word to say, just it came out of my mouth and I didn't realize what I said until I said it, kind of thing. I kind of turned to her at one point, and especially in one particular moment in the game, and I just said to her, this is one of the best things I've ever played. As much as I was scared as a original OG kind of fan with how Remake ended and kind of what they were teasing there in terms of, you know, what's going to happen in the future is completely unknown to yourself as a returning player and to people who have never, you know, played this game. It's going to be new for everyone. It's going to be a surprise for everyone. That scared me a bit because I was like, okay, but please don't fuck up this story. I'm very, very glad to say that the majority of this game is incredible in terms of the main story, the characters, what happens in it. It's done with such respect to the original as well, and it is also like layered this time around. There's so many layers to everything now. It's not just as simple as, again, like with the music, it's not just a simple like copy paste job with everything. They're trying to like bridge a gap or almost extend this universe so you can kind of get learning a lot more about different places, different people, and their intentions in this game. There's one area in particular that I wasn't really like super, you know, overly excited to go back to. I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this from the original game, and I played it in Remake. And for some reason, it just, the way they've changed how I felt about that place in the original to what they did in Rebirth completely changed my opinion, like, on that place. I still love that, like, this particular area, but they've made it even more important and, like, how much more impact it has on the story this time around. There's just so many times in this game where there's so many, like, iconic locations or things where big things happen in the story where, as an original player, you know something's coming, but then again, they still surprise you with things, and it kind of keeps you on your toes the entire time. It's a very, very nervous game to play if you're a returning player, but if you can let go of the past and just enjoy the moment and enjoy the actual game for what it is and stuff, it's incredible. Like, it's legitimately an incredible, incredible journey and experience. And it literally feels like, and it felt like this a little bit with Remake, but not as much because you're kind of stuck in one place. But this feels like an journey, man. The journey in Rebirth is filled with so many memorable moments. I can barely count them on my hand at this point. It is just one thing after another, after another, after another. And it keeps surprising you. And it's genuinely, like, it feels like a journey I've just been on. It feels like an insane long journey I've been on, and part of me didn't want it to end. Like, I knew I was coming up to the ending, and there was part of me that was like, I'm never going to experience this for the first time again. And it's when you get those moments when you play those games, and you play the games that have those kind of like feelings, you know it's a very, very special game. I also think that point I made earlier is what makes this series so unique, like a first time ever for a video game, because you have a remake of an original legendary video game, but you also have questions for people who've already played it going into this, and you got this weird thing of like allowing new players and old players to be in the same boat together in this game. I think that's a genius idea, honestly. I was so against it, really, when I saw what happened at the end of Remake and them basically teasing that and saying, well, you know, things may change. But I kind of, as the months and I thought about it after months went by and stuff, I kind of learned to accept it because I'm like, this is what's going to make it exciting for you to play Rebirth. If this wasn't here, I feel like it would be a little bit like, oh, that's coming up, oh, that's coming up, like internally to myself. But with Rebirth, I was like, oh, I know what's coming up. I hope nothing bad happens. It basically was my internal kind of mind during this whole thing, was like, I know this, there's a bit coming up here that I've been looking forward to. Let's see what happens. And that's good. That's good because it keeps people on their toes, new and old, going into this game. And I just feel like, I don't even think like this has ever been done before with a remake, and that's what makes it so interesting and unique. There's two issues that I think were the biggest ones in terms, like, there's little things. There's little things in this game that come up and you're just like, oh, okay, that's kind of annoying, but like it's acceptable. Like it doesn't come up a lot, but like when it does, it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of annoying, but all right, let's just do it. But the two biggest issues I think I had in this game have kind of been discussed by other people at length, I would say. I'm not going to go into great detail, but the first one is fairly straightforward. The first one is the graphics mode and performance mode. If you don't know about the performance mode and the graphics mode, so there's two modes you can choose in this game. Graphics mode runs at 4K, but at 30 frames a second. And then there's performance mode that runs, I believe, at 1440p or 1080p, but it runs at 60 frames a second. Obviously, it's much better to play this game in 60 frames a second. However, the problem with performance mode is that images look blurry. They look real blurry, like almost distracting how blurry it is sometimes, and that kind of sucks. To the point where I really didn't like performance mode because I felt everything was a real downgrade graphically. Even though I was getting the frames and it felt smooth to play and everything and it was great, I kind of wanted that like level of detail and to be able to see things in great detail. So basically I settled for graphics mode, which was 30 frames, 4K, and it looks gorgeous. This game looks absolutely gorgeous. Like loads of different locations just look, wow, amazing. I'm kind of bummed out though that I had to play this game at 30 frames a second in 2024. I understand it's not just about this game. There's other games that have this issue as well, mainly to do with how powerful these consoles are, or just like how their lifespan is not really lasting as long as we thought it would, and able to give games a good, you know, experience and performance in terms of power. It's just not there at the moment. So unfortunately, you kind of have to decide what you want. And the other thing I'm disappointed, let down, whatever you want to say, I'm not hugely disappointed by it. Like it's not a real like game breaker for me in a way, but I do feel compared to the first 30 hours or so, that the last 10 hours of this game is probably my least favorite out of everything I played. Like, and going on the fact that the first 30 hours of this game is exceptional. Like it's top tier stuff. I just felt like the final couple of hours leading up to the ending, and especially the way the ending was executed, wasn't good. It felt like that was the weakest part of the game for me. It just didn't feel right. It brought so many incredible moments and set the bar so high so early in this game, and it carries it on for so long. And you hope that it's just going to be like this until you finish it. And it was for the majority of it. But last 10 hours, I was disappointed by it. I was just disappointed by the way they handled the last 10 hours of this game. However, I'm not going to let that take away from me how much of a blast I had with this game. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is everything I wanted in the second part of this series. It's, and even more. Like, it's constantly surprised me. It surprised me more than Remake did. Remake, after the initial kind of awe of playing it and seeing Midgar and seeing these places that you've been before. I mean, it was technically one area, Midgar, but there was like slums and things like that. like, when that initial awe kind of rubs away and stuff, it's like, now you're into the game and you're into the meat of the game and stuff. That kind of fades away a little bit, and it does a little bit in Remake. I would say around the halfway point. Rebirth just keeps hitting you with, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this, and it just keeps going and going and going, and it's exciting, man. This is an exciting fucking game to play, and I'm so happy that a game like this exists, because with all the negativity around AAA games, or, you know, big studio games, or games that cost a lot of money, or games that cost consumers a lot of money that are, you know, expensive to make, with all the, like, bad news, disappointments, laziness in terms of releasing them when they're not finished and stuff, Rebirth is a game that we all need to remind ourselves how good video games can be, legitimately. And it is legitimately one of the best video games I have ever played. There's always something for you to be interested in, or like a path to go down, even if you don't want to do main story stuff. There's always something for you to do and get your teeth into. Being in the world itself is incredible. Like, the attention to detail in every single region, how big the regions are, how much stuff they give you, how much tasks you got to do, all the side stuff and the things you might miss out on when you play this game. Like, there is a lot of stuff you can miss out on. Like, take your time with this game. Trust me, please. Take your time. Don't rush through the main story. Take your time with this game. Like, savor it. It is a beautiful, amazing, incredible experience, and I'm so glad I got to play it. I just wish the final 10 hours were as good as the previous 30 hours, but don't let that take away from the fact that this is, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is Game of the Year already. It is just an absolute phenomenal job they did with this, and I am still now incredibly excited for the third game. There's lots of questions at the end of this game. You will have a lot of questions too. You will be thinking about the story after this game for quite some time, thinking about where it's gonna go, and that's exciting. And I'm genuinely excited to see the final game come out and see where this ends. Just enjoy it. That's all I can say. Just take your time, enjoy it. It's gonna be very rare to get a game like this in the future, or the near future, and yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy every moment of it, and you will have an absolute blast. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on FF7 Rebirth. If you have another game you would like me to check out or review or whatever, let me know in the comments below. I might miss out on a lot of 2024 games because I'm kind of still catching up on 2023 a little bit. But if you think of something that you played recently that, honestly, if it's under the radar and I haven't heard of it, that's good, because I want to be recommended stuff, especially this year. Might be a little bit more quieter. You know, if there is a game that is really, really good that not many people have heard of, please let me know and I will check it out. If you want to check me out on Twitch, I'm on Twitch. I'm usually live streaming these games that I'm reviewing anyway, or will do in the future. So check me out on Twitch. I'm live 3 times a week, and most of the stuff that goes on this channel is live stream highlights anyway, so you might as well check me out if you're watching that stuff anyway on Twitch. And thank you very much for watching. I'll have a review video as soon as I can play a goddamn video game and finish it. I haven't got a lot of time. That's why I'm just doing these thoughts videos every now and again. So the review videos are back. Hooray, kind of. Not really. Sort of. It's still me at the end of the day. You know. Just, I'm not standing behind this wall with a very blank stare down the camera lens, and a very beige wall behind me, and a very echoey room. God, I really hate those review videos. I just hate the review quality. I don't hate the review. No, we don't hate the review quality. I just hate the audio quality in the old review videos. You know what I mean? It was very echoey room. I didn't know what to do with the microphone. I was a bit shit is what I'm saying.